As you all saw, the White House rolled out the President's School Safety Plan this morning. Every student should be able to feel safe and secure at their school, and no parent should have to worry whether their child will come home at the end of the day. With that in mind, the President's plan focuses on the following areas. First, hardening our schools. We will ensure our schools are safe and secure, just like our airports, stadiums, and government buildings, with better training and preparedness. Second, strengthening background checks and prevention. President Trump is supporting legislation and reforms to strengthen the background check system and law enforcement operations. Third, reforming mental health programs. The President is proposing an expansion and reform of mental health programs, including those that help identify and treat individuals who may be a threat to themselves or others. And finally, continuing this important conversation, in addition to these immediate actions, the President is reviewing additional policy and funding proposals for school violence prevention. These focus areas were identified after numerous meetings with students, teachers, lawmakers, and local officials, and the President will continue to lead the way on keeping our children safe. Looking ahead to next week, President Trump will welcome Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia to the White House on March 20th. The President looks forward to discussing ways to strengthen ties between the United States and Saudi Arabia and to advance our common security and economic priorities. I'd also like to announce that the President will travel to Peru and Colombia next month. This will mark the President's first trip to Latin America. He will attend the Summit of the Americas in Lima, Peru, and will participate in a series of bilateral, multilateral, and cultural engagements. This travel highlights the President's resolve to deepen our historical ties with our partners in the region and our joint commitment to improve security and prosperity for the people of the Americas. The President is looking forward to meeting with partners and allies who share our values and believe, as we do, that the promise of a safe and prosperous future rests in strong democracies, fair and reciprocal trade, and secure borders. And with that, I'll take your questions. Steve?
The President said Saturday night, he was talking about North Korea, he said if the meeting with Kim takes place, is there a chance that this meeting won't take place?
Look, we fully expect that it will. The offer was made and we've accepted. North Korea made several promises, and if we hope that they stick to those promises, and if so, the meeting will go on as planned.
And what preparations are being made so far for this meeting?
We're continuing to prepare on a number of levels. Most of that is an inter-administration and interagency process, and I'm not going to get ahead of any of the details of the where, the when, or any of that here today. Jonathan?
Sir, a couple weeks ago, the President said that he wanted to raise the age on purchasing assault weapons. He talked about supporting universal background checks, about taking guns away from those identified as a threat even without due process. What happened to all those proposals?
Look, a lot of those things are still outlined in the proposal that if you don't have yet, you should receive here in the next few minutes in your inboxes. But look, right now, the President's primary focus is on pushing through things that we know have broad bipartisan support, or things that we can do from an administrative perspective that we can do immediately. But we haven't let go of some of those other things that we're going to continue to review and look at, as I mentioned in the opening part of my first comments.
Is there a single thing in this proposal from the President that is not supported by the NRA? Is there anything in here that the NRA opposes?
Look, the President still has in this plan the age limit increase, and that is part of one of the things that will be, one of those things will be reviewed on what the best path forward is on that front, whether it can be done at a federal level or whether it needs to be done on a state-by-state basis. But the President, as you know, doesn't have the ability to just create federal law, and he would need a number of other individuals to come together to help make that happen. So what he is pushing forward are things that can immediately be accomplished either through the administration or that have broad-based bipartisan support in Congress, but that doesn't mean that he has wiped away some of those other things that we're still looking at how best we can move forward on.
And why did he name this DeVos Commission less than 24 hours after ridiculing the idea of blue ribbon commissions? He said all they do is talk and talk and talk, and 2 hours later they write a report. And there, on this issue, commission's okay? Why?
Look, the president doesn't just have one piece of this plan. There are a number of things that he is pushing forward that are very tangible, both through support of specific pieces of legislation that we expect to move forward, as well as administrative action like getting rid of the bump stocks that the president has been very vocal about and is going to continue to push for. Phil?
Yeah, Sarah, picking up where John left off regarding the National Rifle Association, at that February 28th meeting with lawmakers, President Trump sort of made an example of Republican senators who were afraid of crossing the NRA. And he said, quote, "Some of you are petrified of the NRA, you can't be petrified." But based on the plan last night, it seems like President Trump was the one petrified of the NRA because he backed away from some of the ideas that he had brought into the discussion. And I'm asking why he chickened out, why he didn't go forward with what he had proposed earlier.
Look, he hasn't backed away from these things at all. As I just said, they're still outlined in the plan, but he can't make them happen with a broad stroke of the pen. You have to have some congressional component to do some of these things, and without that support, it's not as possible. However, we are focused on things that we can do immediately. Let's not forget that the Obama administration had the White House and all of Congress for 2 years and never did anything. This president is actually supporting specific pieces of legislation and still laying out other priorities that he would like to see talked about and implemented, whether we have to do that on a state level.
He could have put out a proposal for legislation. He could have advocated for universal background checks. He could have called for raising the ages in the states and said he's tabled that.
He hasn't
to this
actually.
commission.
It's actually listed still in his policy proposal that you'll see.
Federal policy, just to clarify for federal policy?
It's reviewing the best path forward for how to do that. So that door isn't closed on that front. See?
I was hoping you could comment on news out of Great Britain today. Theresa May saying that the British government believes that Russia was behind the attempted murder, poisoning of a former Russian spy with a nerve agent that is a Russian manufacturer. Is that the assessment of the United States government? Number one, does the United States government plan on designating Russia as like it did North Korea with earlier this year regarding the murder of Kim Jong-un's half-brother of Russia using chemical weapons? And three, will there be any repercussions for Russia from the United States in coordination with its British allies?
Look, we've been monitoring the incident closely, take it very seriously. The use of a highly lethal nerve agent against UK citizens on UK soil is an outrage. The attack was reckless, indiscriminate, and irresponsible. We offer the fullest condemnation, and we extend our sympathy to the victims and their families and our support to the UK government. We stand by our closest ally in the special relationship that we have.
So you're not saying that Russia was behind this attack?
Right now, we are standing with our UK ally. I think they're still working through even some of the details of that. And we're going to continue to work with the UK, and we certainly stand with them throughout this process.
Theresa May said it was either Russia using it themselves or that it had given its chemical weapons to a third party to murder a British citizen, the latter being highly unlikely given the nature of this weapon. So,
like I just said, Zeke, we stand with our ally, and we certainly fully support them and are ready if we can be of any assistance to them.
What was the president's reaction yesterday to Education Secretary Betsy DeVos going on 60 Minutes, saying that she admitted she has not intentionally visited underperforming schools, then went on another network this morning and said that everything was on the table when it came to school safety as well as guns? Clearly, it's not. Everything's not on the table.
Well, the president's laid out what his positions are, both on the school safety front and what he thinks the best path forward specific to immediate actions that we can take, and also things that need further review on determining the best path forward. That's the focus of the president, not one or two interviews, but on actual policy that can help protect the safety and security of school kids across this country.
Last night?
I'm not sure if he saw the whole thing or not. Kevin?
Thank you, Sarah. I have a question about Congress and possibly blocking or delaying tariff implementation. How concerned is the White House about that? And a follow-up on China, if I may.
Sure. Our position on this front hasn't changed. The president's been clear for quite some time what his position is and what his authority is under the 232 statute, and we're moving forward.
If I might, I know the president sort of made a tongue-in-cheek comment about President Xi having the ability to rule for quite some time, perhaps indefinitely. Is there an administration position on something like that? Is that healthy for the relationship between our countries?
That would be a determination for China to make, not something for the United States to weigh in.
But is it healthy from the administration's perspective in terms of our relationship bilaterally to have, say, a leader in a country that's going to be there potentially indefinitely?
I wouldn't weigh in specifically on that. I can say that the president and President Xi have a good relationship, and a lot of the willingness of China to step up and participate at a far higher level than they have in the past to put maximum pressure on North Korea has certainly been successful, and has been in large part due to that relationship. But as the president has also said, he wants to make sure that they don't take advantage of us when it comes to trade, and we're going to continue to push for what's best for America.
A couple on the guns issue. On the age restrictions, the president has said a couple of times he's criticized his predecessors, saying they haven't shown leadership on this issue. So I wonder now how you can make the political expediency argument for his school safety policy, and that he's explicitly backing only things he thinks can pass and not things that may need some additional leadership.
That's actually not what I said. We're specifically driving forward on some of those things that we know can immediately happen, and we're determining what the best path forward is on some of those other things that don't have that same broad base of support. You can't just decide that you want laws to pass and it happens, but you can look at the best process forward to actually implement that type of policy.
He's certainly the leader of the party. He's the
Which is
president of the
why
United
he's laid
States.
those things out in his proposal.
Policy forward if he so choose, if he chose to.
And which is why he laid that out in the policy that he's put forth that he rolled out this morning.
On the commission, is Commissioner DeVos going to continue to be the face of the school safety policy and this commission after last night's interview?
Look, I think that the president is going to be the lead on school safety when it comes to this administration. He certainly has been since this process has begun, and he's going to continue to lead on it as we move forward.
Sarah? Thanks a lot, Sarah. I have two questions, one on guns and the other on the president's trip to California tomorrow. On guns, the president here in the White House met with 6 students from Parkland, Florida, and said specifically that he would go strong on the age limits. And this proposal doesn't have the president stepping forward and demanding action from Congress on those age limits. Why is the president backing away from that promise to those 6 students that he would go strong on gun?
I guess I don't know how many times I can explain the same thing. The president still supports this. That's why it's in his plan, and he is looking at and reviewing the best path forward to try to get it through. But at the same time, he is making sure that the things that we can do right now, we're actually doing. Instead of holding everything back until we can get some of those other pieces done, we're pushing forward on the things that have support, that can be accomplished immediately, and then we're working through the process to see what we can do to get the other things done. That actually seems smart, and it seems like bold leadership to me to push through on things that help protect kids while not ignoring some other policies that the president supports, which we're doing.
Can you tell us some more about the president's trip to California tomorrow? Why is he going to the Wall to see the Wall prototypes first? And also, this is a state that did not vote for the president. Is the president going to make an opportunity to reach out to people who didn't vote for him by going to this state?
I think that this is an important thing that the president has talked about, the safety and security of the country, and strongly feels that the Wall is a big part of that. And he's going to look at those prototypes. One of the other things that he'll also be doing is speaking to members of the military. You'll see all 5 branches of the military represented at the speech he gives. While California may not have, he may not have won that state, there's certainly a lot of support for this president, not just there, but across the country, and he looks forward to being there and presenting a lot of the specific policies.
The president, there's a lot of Republican lawmakers in California that think that the Wall will be too expensive and could be a waste of money. Is the president concerned that he might be putting undue political pressure on Republican lawmakers by visiting the Wall in California?
No, the president campaigned on this. He talked about it extensively, and he's the president. And this is something that he is not going to back away from and something that he's going to continue to push for. John?
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Since Kim Jong-un's overture to meet with President Trump last Thursday and his proposal to denuclearize, the North Korean media has mentioned nothing. They haven't referenced the overture. They haven't referenced this idea that North Korea would get rid of its nuclear weapons. I heard what you said a little bit earlier about how you believe that a meeting will still take place. What makes you think that, based upon the fact that Kim Jong-un hasn't even mentioned this to his own people, that anything of substance will come out of such a meeting?
Look, we know that the maximum pressure campaign is working. We know that they have responded due to that, and they have pushed this message through the South Koreans to us. We have accepted their invitation on the 3 promises that they made, and we're going to move forward in this process.
Being nuclearized is a point of pride, we are told.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the first part of what you
Being a
said.
nuclear country is a point of pride, we are told, for North Koreans. To just simply get rid of their own nuclear weapons, it seems, would be something which would undercut what that country and what Kim Jong-un stands for. Again, why would he get
I think
rid of
that
his
shows
nuclear
the effectiveness of the maximum pressure campaign, and that's one of the reasons that we're not letting up on the maximum pressure campaign, and we're going to continue pushing forward on it. John?
Thank you, Sarah. 2 questions. First, following up on what John asked, we know that Kim Jong-un has been using a special envoy to Seoul to send messages. Has he sent any special messages through any special envoy to the president?
I'm not going to get ahead of or go beyond any of the things that we've already put out publicly.
The other thing is that regarding tomorrow's election in Pennsylvania's 18th district, the president's campaign visit notwithstanding, he is reported in several sources today to have referred to Republican Rick Saccone as, quote, weak, unquote, and said he's run a poor campaign. This seems a little unusual in light of what he said Saturday and in light of Mr. Saccone's praise of him as a friend. Did he actually say that about Mr. Saccone?
Look, I can't weigh in on any specifics of an upcoming election, but I can refer you back to the president's public comments that he made on Saturday.
Drill down on your answer to Brian's question. Is it the president's intent tomorrow to pick a winning design for the wall? Is that why he's going down?
Look, he wants to look at the different prototypes, and beyond that, I'm not going to get ahead of the president's visit.
A quick question. There was a report this morning that the Saudi government inflicted physical abuse on the people who were held captive for the time at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Is this something that the White House intends to bring up with the Crown Prince?
I'm not going to get ahead of the conversations that'll take place on the 20th, but we'll have a readout of that meeting.
Thank you, Sarah. I have 2 questions. First, on guns. The president, during his campaign, said, "Nobody knows the system better than me, which is why I alone can fix it." But it sounds like now you're saying that because certain things that he supports does not have support in the Congress, then he's only going to push forward on the things that are already
That's not actually what I said, but you guys continue to misunderstand and misrepresent the comments that I'm making. I'm saying that the president is pushing forward on things that we know have broad-based support and that we can immediately get done, while at the same time, we're looking at the best way forward to push these other things through, whether it's on a state level, whether it's on a federal level. We're looking at the best process forward because the president does have to work within the Constitution. We can't just write things down and make them law. We actually have to follow a process, and the president is going to go through that process and determine the best path forward on a number of issues that are outlined that he has supported.
Let me ask you about the Manchin-Toomey universal background check legislation. It's not yet clear whether or not the president actually supports having universal background checks. Obviously, in this proposal, he supports the Fix Nix bill, but can you tell us whether or not he does support the idea of background checks for online purchases and private sales?
The president supports fixing some of the problems within the background check system that we have outlined in some of the legislation that we already support, and we're considering other options beyond that. Take one last question, Maura.
Sarah, thank you. The president tweeted, he said, not much political support, to put it mildly, for raising the age. I mean, I've looked at every single poll, and the support for raising the age is like 78%, 82%. Rasmussen was the lowest with 67%. So what is he talking about? There's
Sorry about
tremendous-
Congress, who actually has the ability to make law, not online polls.
He is determined that there is no support in Congress for this?
Not broad-based support that could push this legislation through at this time. That doesn't mean, once again, that we are ignoring the concept or not looking at how we can build a coalition of support for it, but we're still determining what the best best path forward is on how we could implement something like that, as well as a number of other issues on this.
Does he remain
Thank you so much, guys.
Does he remain committed to it, Sarah?
That was the White House press briefing with Sarah Sanders, and this is the post show here at Right Side Broadcasting for the White House press briefing, where we're going to take your comments on the air. What did you think of the White House press briefing? Write to me, Steve Lookner, at Lookner on Twitter. Send me your comments. I want to read them on the air. Let me know what you thought. We apologize again that a bunch of people did not get notifications for this stream. YouTube has basically limited us to one notification a day. I kid you not. They basically are sending out one notification a day for our broadcast, and then any other broadcast we do after the first one, you never find out. We have 295,000 subscribers. YouTube doesn't care. They didn't tell you about this broadcast. They didn't tell you about our coverage of the Austin explosions. They've really basically stopped sending out notifications for our channel. If that's not a shadow ban, I don't know what is. But anyway, so we apologize that you're not getting them. We would encourage you to tweet to YouTube, at YouTube and at Team YouTube, and tell them you signed up for notifications and you'd like to get them. But anyways, that aside, we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you to JC and Barbara Braley and Jazz Punk for moderating in the chat room, and for Common Sense and Gleno for moderating on the website, and to Jacob Seals, who is producing today's broadcast. So let me know what you thought about the press briefing. The big topic at the press briefing seemed to be President Trump's gun safety proposal. I think there were like eight or nine questions on it. And just to catch us up, here's an article just summarizing. The president released his proposals today to reduce gun violence at schools. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Plan would fund training for armed teachers in wake of Florida school shooting, but omits President Trump's call to raise age limit for buying guns. And you can see from what the Wall Street Journal says, just trying to sum up here, the White House announced a plan yesterday, actually, to reduce gun violence at schools. That includes spending federal money on training school staffers to carry concealed weapons, but not President Trump's earlier call to raise the age limit for buying guns. Instead, the plan creates a federal panel to study age restrictions and other potential changes in laws and to make recommendations later. So there were a number of questions in the press briefing today of the form of, well, why didn't President Trump, he said before he supported age limits, and now this proposal he came out doesn't call for raising the age limits. He said he supported before, changes in background checks, but there's no concrete proposal in here to change background checks. So there were a lot of complaining questions today in the briefing about the president's gun proposals. Sarah Sanders' response is that she said what the president is doing is they are focusing in the White House on the proposals there are actually support for that can get passed. And she says the president wants to focus on those proposals first, and then later maybe deal with some other proposals that might not have as much support. She said they're trying to figure out the way to get other proposals through proposals. I guess that would include things like changing background checks, the age limit. So she said they're not abandoning those things. It's just, she said the White House is focusing on the proposals that have more broad-based support first. But that was like half the questions in the briefing was on that. There were also a couple of questions on this interesting story that's out that so North Korea has made no official mention of Kim Jong-un's offer to meet with President Trump. Remember, South Korea presented that offer to President Trump after meeting with Kim Jong-un. But North Korea has made no official statement about it. Their press, the state-controlled press, has not reported it at all. So there were a couple of questions on whether this meeting is really going to happen. Does the White House have any doubts about this meeting happening? But Sarah Sanders said they do in the White House think this meeting will take place. So also another interesting question was, the British government said today, let me show you that proposal, that what the British government said today, that piece of news. Hang on, I'm just calling it up here. Where is it? I know I posted it. Here it is. BNO News reporting. British Prime Minister May says unless Russia provides a credible response, it will consider nerve agent attack an unlawful use of force by Russia against the UK. So the British government is saying that that as of right now, they're considering the nerve agent attack on a former Russian spy and his daughter on UK soil as an attack by Russia on UK soil. I believe those people were UK citizens. They were certainly lawful. I believe they were certainly the dad was a lawful resident of the UK. So, anyways, Britain is considering it Russia's fault at this point, and they're considering it for now an unlawful use of force unless Russia provides a credible response. And Sarah Sanders was asked about, I think Zeke Miller from AP said something like, well, when Kim Jong-un killed his half-brother with a chemical agent in Malaysia, we imposed sanctions on, I believe he said we imposed sanctions on we took action. I believe he said we imposed sanctions on North Korea. So he was suggesting, he was bringing up the question of, are we going to punish, Russia for doing this? And Sarah Sanders, really what she was just saying again and again is we support and we will stick with we stand with the UK government. We support the UK government on this, but she wouldn't get into concrete answers of would we punish Russia or not for this. So, anyways, we'd like to hear what you thought about the briefing. Give me a shout at Lookner on Twitter. Let me know what you thought, if you thought anything. Lucy Rose writes in, when we have a press briefing, it is strange to me how the press twist it. Awkwardly weird of them. Reagan Better says, was the president not briefed on Austin, Texas explosions? I haven't heard that he was briefed. That wasn't asked about in the press briefing, Reagan Better. I think that could have been a good question because there have been 2 fatal package bombs in Austin, Texas in the last 10 days. We just did a stream about that. And there was another explosion today, which we don't know if it was a package explosion or not. But you can watch our stream. We have it posted on all our different outlets, but on a different social media sites. But he was not asked about that. I have no idea if he's been briefed on it. Let's see here. I'm just seeing if there's any more comments in yet about the briefing. Also during the press briefing, we had a couple questions about the president's trip to California. So he will be traveling to California tomorrow. I know he'll be in San Diego looking at prototypes for the border wall and also having a fundraiser in Beverly Hills, or at least the Beverly Hills surrounding area. I read Beverly Hills. I don't know if there will be protests. There very well might be if people know where and when the president's going to be. I don't know if there's been a schedule published or anything. Sometimes they don't publish schedules of that kind of stuff. And so we'll see if there's protests there. It's his first trip to California as president. Let's see here. By the way, we will be covering the Saccone-Lamb election, congressional election Tuesday night. We already have that event posted. So we hope you join us for that live coverage on Tuesday night of the Pennsylvania special election. See, there it is. You can go find it at our site on YouTube. I'm sure they'll send out no notification about it. So you better make a note of where it is because YouTube won't tell you about it. So we hope you join us Tuesday night for that. I think we're going to start around 6:30 Eastern. There was an interesting story announced. There was an interesting story mentioned about Saudi Arabia, which I hadn't heard in the briefing, which I hadn't heard actually. Saudi Arabia, a few months ago, basically imprisoned a bunch of people from the Saudi royal family in a hotel in Saudi Arabia under the guise of being a corruption investigation. And but there was a report that somebody referred to. Here it is in the briefing about how they physically abused people, maybe, or something. So here's the report. I haven't even read this today. Saudi said to use coercion and abuse to seize billions. Let's see here. Where's the part about the abuse? During months of captivity, many were subject to coercion and physical abuse, witnesses said. In the early days of the crackdown, at least 17 detainees were hospitalized for physical abuse, and one later died in custody with a neck that appeared twisted, a badly swollen body, and other signs of abuse, according to a person who saw the body. So I didn't know. I got to read this article later. Now, the government denies this story. The government said the reports are absolutely untrue. But and it says, to leave the Ritz, many of the detainees not only surrendered huge sums of money, but also signed over to the government control of precious real estate and shares of their companies, all outside any clear legal process. So I got to read this later, but there wasn't really any news on this in the briefing. It was asked about. I can't even remember what Sarah Sanders said in response to it, but it wasn't anything, super newsworthy. But I did want to let you know about that story, because I got to read more about that when I get off the air. Linda Belk writes in, I admire Sarah Sanders so much. She is so patient with these idiots, I'd be ready to punch their lights out, and she just smiles and answers the same dumb question over and over and over. Thank you, Linda, for writing in. Quick reminder, we are viewer-supported at Right Side Broadcasting. So you guys are the ones that let us go to the rallies and cover President Trump's rallies, cover different news stories that the mainstream media isn't paying much attention to, give you this live briefing coverage where we take your comments on the air. And we're basically... We never really made much money from YouTube anyway, but now they as I said before, they're really not sending out notifications for our broadcasts anymore. There was no notification sent out for our last two broadcasts. Also, they're marking a lot of our broadcasts, including President Trump's rally, as not fit for most advertisers, so we don't really make ad money for them. So we really rely on you to stay on the air. So if you want to make donations, if you like Right Side Broadcasting and want to support us, go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on the $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. So we're taking your comments on the air about the press briefing. If you have comments, write to me on Twitter, @Lookner. R. Rhett writes, and did you notice there were no questions from CNN and NBC journalists? Their journalists were heard shouting as she left the stage. Blessings. I didn't notice that, but I didn't see fully who was in the room, but I don't recall any CNN or MSNBC or NBC or MSNBC journalists asking a question. I can't confirm that because I was listening to some of the questions and not looking. But certainly I don't recall. Now, last week there had been a streak of 3 straight briefings where she didn't call on CNN, and Jim Acosta shouted about that at the end of the briefing. But I don't know if that happened. Maybe it happened again today. Mike writes in, regarding polls and support in Congress for age limit 21 for long guns, Shep Smith called Sarah a liar when she doubted the polling support. I didn't see that, but thank you for that update from Fox News from Mike. Kathy Connor writes in with this comment. She says, arming teachers, I believe, hiring our vets to guard our schools would be twofold, helping ease the fear in schools and putting our vets back to work who are already steady under pressure. Note, same background check for them. Thank you, Kathy, for writing in and giving your opinion. In our chat room, Patchiuno1 says, Sarah is peed at CNN. It's a word that begins with P. So, again, a reminder, tomorrow night we will have the coverage, live coverage of the election, the special election in Pennsylvania. I think that's going to start at 6:30 Eastern, so we really hope you join us for that tomorrow. And don't wait for a notification for dumb YouTube, because they probably won't send you one. All right, I'm going to make a last call for comments on the press briefing. Also, if you haven't seen it, check out our report we did on the Austin explosions today. I had just finished with that before the briefing started, so it was good timing. But we have a report. It's published. You can see it on YouTube, on Facebook. It's on our Twitter, on our Periscope. You can. Our Periscope is RSBN TV. Our Twitter is @RSB Network. Our Facebook is Right Side Broadcasting, and I am on Twitter at @Lookner. I post about breaking news all the time, so you can follow me on Twitter @Lookner. And our producer, Jacob Seals, doing a great job today. You can follow him at @JacobRSBN Music. And CEO of Right Side, Joe Seals, is @Joe Seals, Seales. Hey, this just in about the Austin explosions. Let me show you this. Texas Governor Abbott offers $15,000 reward for information on any persons involved in explosions that have struck Austin. Just seeing if there are any more news updates since we've been on the air. And note that Rex Tillerson said this morning, U.S. still has not heard anything directly back from North Korea about the meetings, but the White House still thinks they're going to happen. Or it's going to happen. They've also not had anything in their press, state press, about the meeting, or even the offer. Brian N. writes in, Steve, I'm not sure I am in favor of teachers with guns, but I am more in favor of cops that are competent and not afraid to do the job, including risking their own lives. Thank you, Brian. Now, one consideration about any of these proposals for arming teachers or arming cops and stuff is how much will it cost? You know, if you add up the number of school shootings, during the average year in the U.S., it's not, not that many in terms of I was reading that the average number of deaths from school shootings over the last, decade or so is like 10 a year. So there are these incidents, and they're really terrible and awful. But my point is, what you have to do with any kind of expense is balance the costs and the benefits. So any money that's going to be spent on staffing schools, hiring extra people to work with guns at schools to protect students, is going to be money that can't be spent on anything else. So generally what you have to do with any of these proposals is say, how many people do we have to hire for how many schools? How much is that all going to cost? And what is the benefit going to be? And what would the benefit be instead of, say, spending that on some healthcare initiative, disease prevention or something like that? So that's a big question. I certainly haven't done enough research. You'd have to do a lot of research to really have great answers on those different alternatives. But I just wanted to throw that out there as an important consideration when thinking about these proposals. So thank you again, Brian N., sharing your view. Brian N. for writing in and sharing your view. Kathy Smuskowitz writes in, Hey, Steve, I came in at the very end of the briefing, but if I may say this in regards to the issue of age restrictions on gun purchases, personally, I don't see how this can be achieved given the age of eligibility to enter the military. Hope this isn't too vague. So, Kathy, I think what you're saying is, how can they make gun purchase age of rifles 21 if they have people in the military who are under 21 who have rifles? The thing is, I think the basic idea here is that in the military, you don't purchase a gun. So if there was legislation outlawing gun purchases by people until they were 21, if there was legislation that came out saying nobody under 21 can buy a rifle, that wouldn't prevent people in the military who are under 21 from having rifles, because people in the military under 21 who have rifles are not buying their rifles. But I understand the question, so thank you for writing in. Deplorable Penguin says, why don't you create a calendar compatible with iOS and Android so everybody can subscribe and be notified on their phone about all events Right Side is covering? Any new update or change will automatically be updated on everybody's phone. Well, it's an interesting suggestion, but what I don't think that would necessarily do, I don't think that would do a push notification. Where it would like pop up on your phone, because a lot of what we do is cover. We cover live news, and if we want people to watch it live, they have to get that notification right away. So we don't want to rely on people to like have to check their calendar or check their page. We want people to be able to like have them get the notification right away. Also, look. So we'll look into that, but I mean, I don't know if that will get us what we want. Also, our subscribers have chosen, they've pressed a button and said, we've pressed a series of buttons and said, we want to get all the notifications for Right Side Broadcasting. They have told YouTube that, and yet YouTube refuses to send them out. How about that? They won't do what their subscribers are asking them to do. Amazing. Clinton Morgan says, any news on the missing CDC guy? He says it's been a month now. That's scary stuff. I've heard no update on this. I mean, if you want to read it, CBS had an article about it this morning. It says $1,000 reward for CDC denies missing worker was passed over for promotion. He's been missing for a month. He was a scientist at the CDC. He has disappeared. So, anyways. Yep, still missing. But if you want to read this, that was posted by CBS News today. All right, and by the way, I just noticed, I think we're going to wrap up the stream, and I'm going to retweet from my account. It looks like some news outlets are showing a briefing on the package explosions that's happening right now, so I'm going to go check that out. I can't just show it to you, though, because it's not ours. This is ABC News showing it. So anyways, I just retweeted that from my account @Lookner. So if you want to go to that, go to my Twitter account @Lookner and check it out, and you can watch it there. I'll go check it out now. And we're going to wrap up this stream now. So I want to say thanks to everybody for watching our coverage today of the White House press briefing. Thank you for all of your comments that you sent in. Thank you so much to Real Frank, JC, Barbara Bailey, Jazz Punk for moderating in the chat room. I think Jazz Punk was in this one and not the last one. And Common Sense and Gleno moderating on the website. And again, we are viewer supported. If you like our coverage, we hope you consider donating, because you really are what keeps us on the air. You can donate to Right Side Broadcasting by going to the bottom of the YouTube chat and clicking on the $ there. Any amount is welcome. Or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Okay, if there's big news later, we will come back on the air. I'll post any kind of breaking news on my Twitter as well, @Lookner. Thanks to Jacob Seals for producing. And what else? Oh, join us tomorrow night for our live coverage of the special election results from Pennsylvania. But for now, I am Steve Lookner. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to go watch this stream right now, the live press conference about the Austin explosions. Go watch that on my Twitter if you want. I just retweeted the ABC News feed of it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for staying. Thanks, Barry, Bob, your uncle, DM, David Moore. Who else? Linda, Laurette Roos, all the moderators, and everybody else there in the chat room. All right, I'm going to wrap it up right now. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon with more news at Right Side Broadcasting. Have a great day.